Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we're going to talk to the new police chief. And I say talk to instead of introduce because I think most of you already know him. Welcome, Chief Wideman.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's great to have you back here.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
Why? So you have a long history with Hampton. Tell us how that got started. Like why? First you were in the fire service before you were in the police. What made you want to do that?
Fire service? Well, first I volunteered with the Northampton Fire and Rescue. I was a volunteer probably at age 16.
Now, was that like family related? Had your family done that? Because a lot of times that volunteer thing gets passed down.
No, my dad figured I had a little too much energy, and that was a good course of action for me to burn some of that energy and find other resources and things to do with my time. But once I started, fell in love with it.
That's great. So then you went on. You tell me. I don't want to keep guessing.
Well, I volunteered, and then at graduation from Bethel High School
yes,
here in Hampton.
Yes, need to give them their props.
Absolutely, Bruins. I went ahead to the rescue squad. I went to the fire academy in 1988. They hired me as a full-time medic firefighter. I did that up until 1994, which at that point in time I transitioned over to the police department, where I remained until 2019.
Okay, so why? You're doing great in the fire service, you love it. I assume you like EMS because that's a bigger part of the duties these days than fire.
Yeah, adrenaline. I mean, to put it simply, adrenaline. Fire service is a great job. Love being a medic firefighter. There is some downtime, 24-hour shifts. Whereas the police department afforded me more opportunities, not only for promotions, but a little more action, excitement, movement, position assignments, because the diversity and the various disciplines in the police department, it allowed me the opportunity to explore and never get bored.
And you hit most of them. I mean, like on your rotations and promotions path, what are some of the roles? You don't even have to remember them all, but what are some of the things you did?
Sure. Of course, I had a great leadership team that helped develop my career. They mentored me throughout. So they identified assignments within the police department that would further develop me. So when Chief Townsend was the police chief, he selected me as his public information officer, which I was probably there for 7 years.
You were there a long time. Yeah.
I've seen a lot. I went through investigative services, of course. I was a recruiter with the recruiting unit. I worked in professional standards. I've had a couple tours in our criminal investigations unit. I was a supervisor in criminal investigations. I've worked in the professional standards, or what some police agencies call internal affairs.
Right.
Various administrative positions, and always had a love for operations, which is the boots on the ground, working the road, working the shifts. I've worked all the shifts, days, evenings, midnights. And then prior to retirement, I was again assigned to professional standards. Do
you have a favorite thing that you like? What a favorite role?
Probably the best rank up until recently would have been a road sergeant. That's where, the rubber meets the road. You're closest to the troops. You have influence. You can help mentor and guide the officers, teach them the better skill sets, how to be investigators. All of those things help you just, develop as a leader. And at that sergeant level, it's like where you're still close enough and not so far up in the higher ranks where you don't have that same connection and relationship. But I think that's where I had the most impact as a sergeant.
That's interesting. And, since you left, the police departments across the country have been under a lot of scrutiny for treatment of people with color, treatment of people in general. Like, how does that relate, or does it relate to what you're doing now?
Well, I can speak to Hampton, and we've had an outstanding relationship with our community. But I think it's because of our community engagement, community policing efforts, where we're actually in the community. We take every opportunity to find ways and reasons to engage, and not where in some places are called, but whether it's a ball game, a sporting event, just a neighborhood night out, crime prevention week. We have our Citizens Police Academy. Our Citizens Police Academy alumni offers a great deal of support for the police department. So we're engaged, we have good relationships. They know us not only as officers, but just humans, neighbors, friends. And I think that builds on the trust. I mentioned earlier, as Chief Townsend used to say, every time we do something good, positive in our community, it's a deposit in our trust fund. And so the more opportunities we have, the larger our trust fund, the more we can build on that. So we've just been really successful in that.
Yeah. And Hampton's Police Department, for as long as I've known, which isn't nearly as long as you, has been really pretty diverse.
Yes.
I mean,
we're a representation of our community. Throughout the ranks, at various levels in the organization, we've always mirrored our community. The demographic in our rank structure is consistent with our community, thereby, I guess, giving us a better understanding of what the expectation is, what the need is, and when they come to the police department, they see a familiar face.
Mm-hmm. In fact, it's also familiar because a lot of you are from here.
Yes.
I mean, some people come from the outside,
Sure.
some people come from the military,
Sure.
but a bunch of you grew up here and knew the community, all your whole life.
Friends, neighbors, family members, we're all intertwined into the community. So we're invested and we care about what happens because, again, they're our family, our friends, our neighbors.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as chief, what are your first sort of goals? I know you spoke to council. Crime had dropped a little bit
Yes.
Last year, and this year I think every place in the country has seen some uptick, particularly in gun violence.
Yeah, crimes happens in trends, and our responsibility is to be as preventative as we can, and then when we can't prevent it, identify those persons responsible and hold them accountable. Some of the problems with the gun violence is the weapons that are available to the criminals. Some of the ways those weapons are obtained is, say, burglaries. As a gun owner, you have a great responsibility. So although the weapon may be in your home, if it's in a safe and it's secure, not only is it protected from some would-be thief obtaining it, but also protects the family members. Mm-hmm. If you're transporting a weapon in a vehicle, of course you want to, when you exit the vehicle, remove the weapon from the vehicle, take it with you, and then again, put it in a secure location. So most of our weapons that we're finding are used in violent crimes come by way of another crime being committed against another citizen. They obtain a weapon, it becomes transferred within the street and in the hands of criminals.
So how do gun owners, how does that happen? I mean, I also heard from some officer that thieves look for like military stickers or things on your car bumper
Sure.
stickers that might say I'm more likely to be a gun owner.
And they pay attention
Isn't
to those.
that crazy?
It is. And our responsibility, though, is to do community awareness. Just like this today is we have the conversation, we tell them how they can secure their weapons, we tell them what the trends and behaviors are, what the most common occurrences are, and give them the devices and the information where they can take some preventative actions.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Other things, cars being broken into, one of the most common
Yes.
occurrences that we have are people leaving their cars unlocked?
Yes. Well, people leave their cars unlocked because there's a level of comfort and safety, security. They may leave their vehicle running to have it cooling off during the summer, warming up during the winter, and a lot of thieves, a lot of criminals are opportunists. So crimes of opportunity present themselves, and they may not necessarily wake up that morning looking to steal a car, but if they're going by a car that is running and unattended, the opportunity presents itself, and then they may take the car. Some of the considerations, there are trends like certain vehicles become more popular, targets for thieves. Right now, Hyundais and Kias.
When you said that in front of council, I went and looked it up.
Yes.
Problem everywhere because
Yes.
of a software glitch.
Yes.
And popularized on TikTok, I understand.
Exactly. So it becomes a trend, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, there are people that follow that, criminals that follow that, and so
And kids who should know better but aren't quite there yet.
well, they know better.
Yeah,
they make a
that's true.
criminal choice, so
Yes.
that's why we hold them accountable. But what we've come to understand is Hyundai and as well as Kia, they're amending the software. They're doing recalls. One of our operations captains has gone out and acquired some of the steering wheel locks. And when we're going to neighborhoods that are target neighborhoods, for example, high concentration of vehicles would be apartment complexes or multiple living spaces, and we're giving those out to those type of vehicle owners for free, just again to help take a preventative step, give them the awareness, refer them to their dealers so they can get the free recall work done to their vehicles and make them less likely for larceny, theft, or being stolen.
Yeah, that's amazing. And getting that word out means that people know.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to wait for that little card to come. You can call the dealer and check.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What else are you looking to do, like your top priorities or where you want to concentrate?
Recruiting and retention. Creating a healthy workspace where the employees enjoy the work that they're doing. It's still a dangerous job, but you can still enjoy the work, enjoy the people you're surrounded by, afford opportunities for growth, promotion, Retention, again, that comes by way of having that healthy environment. And then recruiting. Across the board, law enforcement agencies are finding difficulty getting good candidates, people that are interested in pursuing careers in law enforcement. There was a time where a great many law enforcement officers did it as a family trade. That's less likely, especially with the technology that's available, other job opportunities that are available now. So our recruiting effort, although it's difficult, we're persistent. We're using technology to our advantage, using social media platforms, geofencing, and just boots on the ground, making contact with people in the communities, at the military bases, at the places of education and religious venues, to see if we can recruit the good people that we're looking to acquire. Because everyone that makes an application may not necessarily be the best candidate.
That's right. And that Law and Safety Academy
Yes.
Should help. I mean, I know you have at least one hire
Yes.
who made it through that and then worked as a police cadet, because you're not old enough
Yes.
to be a real police officer. And I talked to him, and he said keeping him employed during that time is what made him stay as an
Absolutely.
officer. Otherwise, he would have had that gap. And he said, I would have joined the military. I mean, I had to do something then. So I know of at least one person
Yes.
that has really
And
benefited.
we're ambitious in our efforts. As you indicated, people come to us because they're looking for work. So when we process somebody, and if we can get them through the process and it looks like they're going to be a viable candidate, the first thing we do is we try to get them on the payroll as soon as possible. So we may find other job opportunities that would typically be filled by a civilian employee that are sworn positions, but still we have a need for them, and we may employ them in those positions until we can send them through the academy. They become of age, and then we can have them as a sworn officer to fill our ranks.
Okay, different tack, but young people still. You mentioned during the council meeting that a lot of your preventative and prevention measures are centered around kids in middle school to high school.
Yes.
The crime is typically older than that. It's 18 to 30. So if you're working on prevention here, the people who are here are still a problem. Like, prevention doesn't show up until those people are of age. I mean, it takes a while. So how do you, in the interim, focus on both of those?
Well, first, it's hard to measure prevention.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if a person has been actually impacted by your efforts because they have not committed crime and they don't fall in that margin of criminals. So what we try to do is give them options, give them resources, while we still think that it's early enough to influence their behavior. Because the numbers, as you see, 18 to 20, they probably have already established themselves in some sort of criminal enterprise. Harder to sway them away from that, because then it becomes a perpetual cycle of criminal activity. If we can capture that younger group, then hopefully we can turn them before they fall into that career criminal status. Because the age group between the 18 and 30, they've probably been offended enough now that influence is less likely. Criminal behavior has become a way of life. They've become what is we describe career criminals, and therefore the criminal justice system is the best tool to resolve or address their issues.
Are there things people can do to reduce their likelihood of being victims of crime, or to increase their neighborhood safety, or however you want to phrase that? Human beings at home like me in my neighborhood, what should I do?
Awareness and cooperation with police. If you see something, report something. But the benefit or the great thing about Hampton is, unfortunately, I have to say that many of the victims of crime, they know each other, they're criminals. The violent crime that's occurring is occurring amongst people that have pursued criminal activity. By virtue of their criminal activity, violence results, and the homicides, robberies, and aggravated assaults are the consequence. As a regular
So not buying
citizen,
drugs is one of the things you can do to
Be
stay
a good
safe.
person,
Right,
don't
right.
commit criminal acts, and you're less likely to find yourself in a social group of criminals. Because typically the targets are they're a criminal on Monday and they're a victim on Tuesday.
Gosh. And then the other one, of course, is domestic abuse, and knowing the signs of that
Yes.
early and getting out of that situation.
And we provide resources for that as well. We have partnerships with the Victim Witness Office of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, Transitions, which addresses that, and we also refer people for counseling and family support services.
So that, and maybe like neighborhood watch, or knowing your neighbors, knowing what's going on in your neighborhood.
That's so important. We've gotten so far away from knowing your neighbors, and that is the most important network of prevention that you have. Who knows better what car, what person belongs in the neighborhood than the other members of your community? You can see a car that you haven't seen, a car that's been there for quite some time, unattended, abandoned, someone in the neighborhood that just doesn't fit because you haven't seen them before, a visitor of your neighbor's house when you know your neighbor's not home, and it just looks suspicious. Well, in those instances, you would call the police to come out so we can investigate.
Yep.
When we do come out to those scenes, say a crime has already been committed, one of the first things we do is what we call a neighborhood canvass. And ask the neighbors, hey, did you see or hear anything that is out of sorts, something that's unfamiliar, not typical, a change in schedule at a location, some people that just typically have not visited this neighborhood or this home that since their visit, now a crime has been committed. So knowing your neighbors, knowing their routines, and when something is out of sorts, making a call, communication to either that neighbor or the police so someone can investigate.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say? This is your platform. Have a chance to say that I didn't ask you about.
We'll continue our efforts to engage our community, to be available. We encourage any and everyone to reach out to us. There are many forms of communication. We have social media. We have the Citizens Police Academy and various other platforms where people can engage the police department, communicate with us, and we'll have somebody reach out and have a conversation.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for coming back.
My pleasure.
You may already know Chief Wideman, but this is a chance to hear a little bit more. So I hope you will support the police department. They are here for us. Reach out if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.